Alright, let's get to the stories. I'm just gonna move this around. Okay, cool. So, here's the story. So, Parliament. So, Biden was planning to put a $15 minimum wage in his code bill. It would raise the minimum wage over a period of 5 years incrementally, so it would be a little bit of a time, so it just wouldn't crash the economy immediately. Now, the Senate parliamentarian ruled that, hey, I'd recommend you don't put it in your COVID relief bill. Now, what few people are talking about, at least in the mainstream circle, is that Kamala Harris doesn't have to go by the parliamentarian's rules. She can overrule her very easily. Just say, no. And it takes a 60-vote majority to go against Kamala Harris in that ruling. Now, if you campaigned on $15 an hour as one of your main issues, as you can see in video like this.
It is long past time we have a $15 federal minimum wage.
It's long past time we pass a national $15 an hour minimum wage.
I think it's long past time that there's a minimum wage of $15 an hour.
It's long past time to be at $15 federal minimum wage.
$15 minimum wage, $15 minimum wage, and $15 million, $15,000. $15.
National minimum wage should be $15.
$15 an hour. $15 an hour.
$15 an hour. The hell are we arguing about a $15 minimum wage for?
$15 an hour minimum wage.
$15 should be a minimum wage, period.
$15 an hour. $15 an hour.
$15 an hour?
$15 an hour.
I do support a $15 minimum wage. A $15 minimum wage. A $15 minimum wage?
$15 minimum wage.
Why is it even a question?
One of the fights that I've been waging for a number of years now.
Since my first day in Congress, I have been fighting to raise the minimum wage. $4.25 to $5.50.
$5.15 to $7.25. You want to vote against the minimum wage? Have the guts to come up here.
It's been 10 years.
4 years ago, I was told raising the minimum wage too radical. Oh my God.
Going from $7.25 to $12 is a huge difference.
Oh, you want to more than double it. And what are you smoking? 12 is not good enough. We need $15. Now, is that something, Joe, that you are supportive of?
Bernie, I am extremely supportive of it.
Did you, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage?
I do. It's well past time. The minimum wage now should be a minimum of $15. It's well past. $15 an hour.
$15 an hour. $15 an hour. The minimum wage is a minimum.
Minimum wage of $15. People tell me that's going to be hard to pay. Florida just passed it.
Our recovery plan also calls for at least $15 an hour. Oh, apparently that's not going to occur.
So you're saying the minimum wage won't be in this
My
record?
guess is it will not be.
Vice President Kamala Harris, she could overrule the parliamentarian.
We'll let the process play out.
We're going to pass a national $15 an hour minimum wage. You all think I'm kidding, don't you?
Shout out to Dem Watchdog on Twitter for putting that compilation together. They do great work. Just check out that Twitter page. They do great compilations of Democrats saying contradictory shit. So, Harris has said she would not overrule the parliamentarian, which is stupid. You campaign on this issue as we just watched, and you can do it. It's very much in your power. And, well, you might say, well, it's a long-standing rule. You can't just overrule the parliamentarian. That's just something you can't do. In 2001, Republicans took a drastic step after a series of ruling went against their plan. The Senate was evenly split at the time, similar to how they are now, with Vice President Cheney being the tie-breaking vote. In this case, Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote. Republicans tried to usher in tax cuts, though the Congress under budget reconciliation process that allows Senate to move 51-vote majority rather than the 60 votes normally required to avoid a filibuster. But then Senate parliamentarian Robert Doe ruled that the tax cuts and a measure creating $5 billion or fund for natural disaster damage could not be considered using the reconciliation process. So what did they do? They fired him, and nothing happened. They won re-election the following year. Okay, so there is precedent for this. They can either fire the parliamentarian, overrule them. So, in fact, this is them firing him. They could easily just overrule them, and so they could easily get past this. Okay, this is frankly embarrassing, and they're just giving up. It was shown just the other week. Let me just Google this. Yep. Biden privately tells governors minimum age hike likely isn't happening. Shows he is just given up. Now you might say, well, he's just being realistic. He doesn't see the votes for it. Well, if he doesn't see the votes for it, and it's an issue that he campaigned for hard, and it was at the center stone of his campaign, then he needs to go to Joe Manchin, to Kristen Sinema, and say, hey, we're going to pass this whether you like it or not, okay? Okay, and if you don't pass it, I'm going to primary challenge you in your states, okay? So, he could easily pass this. It's a 59% popular issue, okay? Now, there are 3 ways that the Democrats can go about passing this now. There's 1, overrule the parliamentarian, as I state. Number 2, they can put the bill on the floor and force Republicans to vote against an unpopular policy. And when that doesn't work, you can say, look, this is an extremely popular policy. It has bipartisan support among voters, okay? We are obviously not going to get anything through with these Republicans that requires a 60 vote. To do that, we must abolish the filibuster so we can actually make good on our campaign promises, okay? That is how we are going to get a minimum wage hike. That is how we're going to get half of our policies. But they won't do that because, oh no, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin don't want to do that. Oh no, I don't give a fuck. Just go over there, say, hey, we're abolishing the filibuster whether you like it or not. Robert Byrd doesn't care. Okay? So, it is extremely unacceptable that they're giving up on the $15 minimum wage. On the other side of the coin, there is legislation now in the COVID bill to give people who don't pay their workers, large corporations who don't pay their workers $15, like a 5% tax hike on their payroll taxes. Despite that, large companies will still most likely not pay their workers well. And also, they will continue to exploit starvation wages. This is not nearly enough. There needs to be a minimum wage law that is a livable wage, okay? You cannot live on $7.25, and if you can, please show me how. I need to know, okay? Okay, the minimum wage has not gone up in 10 years, and for those of you saying, well, if it goes up, then inflation will happen, and McDonald's will cost $38 for a burger. In Denmark, the minimum wage is $22, okay? Big Mac price, Denmark. $4.32. The minimum wage did not impact the price of the Big Mac. Okay? So don't tell me that we can't hike the minimum wage, because we can. We've done it before, and inflation rarely goes above as those who freak out. Okay? So it is insane that we're debating. And those who are saying, well, Mitt Romney proposed a bill that was like minimum wage will go up to $11. Now, $11 is more than $7.25. You're right, it is. Good job for you doing math. But you can't live on $11 either. Okay? $11 might get you by in rural Wyoming, but it won't get you by in, like, other states. Okay? in big city states. You know why? Because $11 an hour is some horse shit, okay? Over 5 years, by the time that's out, $11 an hour will probably be worth less than $7.25, okay? If we're being honest. Okay? So that is an embarrassing bill. And don't think that, any proposal of minimum wage will satisfy progressives. It will not. And try telling voters in 2022, oh, we tried to get you your minimum wage hike, but the parliamentarians said we couldn't. Vote for us, please. That's not going to fly. And you know it's not going to fly, okay? This is embarrassing, okay? It's stupid. It's just, I honestly think Democrats want to lose at this point. Like, they just want to keep their core buddies in their seats, and then everyone else will fail. Like, that's just what they want. And yeah, it's a shame. Now, that's probably not the case. It's an over exaggeration, but sometimes I wonder if Democrats actually want to help people, or they just want to live comfortably in their seats. So that's the news on the minimum wage. It's extremely disappointing, and I don't understand how we're still having this debate. $15 is the bare minimum, okay? $15 is barely livable, okay? But it's something. Yes, this is a leftist channel. Yes, it's more leftist. Okay? $15 is the bare minimum. For those of you going, oh, but $12 is acceptable. Okay? No, it's not. Okay? You can't live on $12. You need to go to full 15 or even higher. Okay? I think we should go to 15, then incrementally adjust it with inflation even after that. No, I would not consider myself an anarchist. Yeah, I would agree that's not affordable for many people, but it's as good as I was about to say it's as good as we're going to get, but I think we can even go more. I'm not a Marxist. I wouldn't go that far, but I do respect those who are. Okay, so that's the news on minimum wage. If 59% support $15, okay, if we can't even get that, we failed as a Congress. We've just failed, okay? All right, on to the next story. So, right after bombing the minimum wage bill, Biden decided, you know what, I'm going to bomb Syria. That sounds nice. So, this was an attack on an Iranian base in Syria. This was in response to a killing in Iraq. Okay? So, here's the thing. You might say this was an attack in response to Iran killing a U.S. citizen in Iraq. Well, let me tell you something. Iraq is an illegal war, okay? We are more responsible for that U.S. soldier's death than they are, okay? We use U.S. soldiers as pawns in our world-dominant takeover, and we are more responsible than the countries for their deaths, okay? The Iraq War was started because they have oil, okay? And our message to the people of why we should go to Iraq is because Saddam Hussein helped in 9/11. He was one of the main founders of the attacks on the Twin Towers. That turns out that was a lie. And everyone now knows that's a lie, okay? And that was our main reason for going into Iraq. When people found out, hey, that's a lie, we were like, okay, that is a lie. But Iraq has nuclear weapons. We went there. Turns out they didn't have nuclear weapons, and our evidence that they did was very questionable at best. Okay? And then went, well, if you don't like Iraq, if you don't want to see a war with Iraq, I guess you're just pro-dictator. You're just pro-dictator, okay? Yeah. Which, no, we're not the world's fucking policemen, and we don't just go into other countries and bomb them in our imperialistic takeover, okay? Yeah, they don't have weapons either, okay? I mean, there is Sometimes show they do, but at this point they can have weapons because we pulled out the nuclear deal. Okay, they have the right to have weapons, and it's right to bear arms, practically. Okay, so I would argue we are as much responsible for that U.S. soldier's death as Iran is. Okay, now in the discussion with Iran, I'm sorry about that. Biden has said Iran must return to the negotiating table before U.S. lifts sanction, meaning that he thinks Iran should get back in the nuclear deal before we do. When we are the one who broke the deal, we are the one, our country imposed sanctions on Iran and broke the deal on ourselves. We broke it. They were abiding by the deal perfectly and not forming any nuclear weapons or enriching uranium, okay? Okay, it is our responsibility to get back in the deal, not theirs. It's ours, and it is frankly imperialistic for you to suggest otherwise, okay? So, this was an illegal attack. We need to get back in the air. This jeopardizes our ability to get back in the Iran nuclear deal greatly, okay? It was in response to an attack based in an illegal war where you're in a country we are invading illegally that's costing the U.S. millions. Now, there's a good statistic on how much the Iraq war is costing us, okay? So, this is a video from YouTube creator and progressive Kyle Kalinske. This is a little rant he went on in one of his videos of how much about some just rambling facts about the Iraq war, and it's just a great list of things. This video, it came out in 2019, so it's a bit outdated, but it still really holds up, so I'm just going to let him take over.
Here, I got the facts pulled up in front of me. U.S. soldiers killed, at least 4,400. U.S. soldiers injured, not including PTSD, 32,200. Civilians directly killed, 134,000. Indirect deaths from the invasion. Civilians killed because of the invasion that weren't direct, 655,000. Reporters killed, 150. 2.8 million people were internally displaced or fled the country. $1.7 trillion. That was the direct spending for the war as of 2013. $5,000 is the amount of money spent in Iraq per second. $490 billion is war benefits that are now owed to the vets. $7 trillion is the total cost of the war by 2053. $20 billion is the amount of money paid to the corrupt contractor KBR. $3 billion is the questionable payments to corrupt contractor KBR. $3 billion. War profiteers. People died because they lied and they got rich. $60 billion is the amount of money that was paid for the corrupted reconstruction effort where people were just, and U.S. companies were just robbing the taxpayers blind. Missing, 546 million. Whoops, where'd it go? I don't know where it went. 190,000 guns, 110,000 AK-47s ended up in the hands of ISIS, by the way. 40% was the increase in Iraqi oil production. $5 billion was the revenue from Iraqi oil in 2003. After the invasion and after we got our hands on it, that number went from $5 billion to $85 billion in revenue from oil production. Wow, I wonder if that's a major part as to what this war was about that we weren't told. $150 billion is the amount oil companies are expected to invest in oil development over the next decade. And then, of course, there were $75 billion. That was the approximate amount expected to go to American subcontracting companies, including Halliburton, which Dick Cheney took millions of dollars from. And then zero is the grand total of nuclear weapons of mass destruction that were found. So, I don't know, maybe on the 16th anniversary of the war.
Okay, so that's the facts about Iraq that show that it's an illegal war, and we should just pull out, okay? And it is as much our fault as their fault for that U.S. soldier's death, okay? We use U.S. soldiers as pawn in our imperialistic takeover, okay? So, we shouldn't be striking Iran because we're invading their country, okay? So, yeah. This is extremely... Also, I find it funny that Biden is bombing countries and threatening us. You better get back into a peace deal right now or we're going to continue to bomb you. It's quite the convincing mechanism. What a jackass. So, yeah, this is extremely disappointing. Extremely. Okay? So, yeah. Finally got Joe Biden on the war criminal list. He's up there with greats like Obama and Bush. So, yeah, it's glad to have a war criminal president line. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. This is definitely the worst. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to tell you guys about. Biden Khashoggi. I don't know how to spell the name. It'll probably come up. Here we are. Biden won't penalize the Saudi crown prince for over Khashoggi's killing, fearing relations breach. No, I don't want to subscribe. Okay. So, for those of you who don't know, in 2017, the Saudi Arabian prince killed Jamal Khashoggi, who was a journalist. He killed him with a bone saw in a hotel room. We saw a tape where it clearly happened, and they tried to use a dumb disguise for him to escape, to have someone impersonate him on the road. Okay, so they killed a journalist. That is incredibly illegal and against international law. Biden won't penalize them. And it was a huge thing in 2017 that Trump wasn't penalizing them over this, okay? But now that Biden's not penalizing, you're not going to hear shit, okay? Because it's our party doing it. Who cares? But he's not going to hold him accountable because we have a close relationship with Saudi Arabia. You know, a government that imposes their authoritarian religion and an extremist version of Islam spread over the world, and there's some evidence that the Saudis have child sex slaves. But they're a key ally because they have lots of oil, okay? So Biden won't penalize him for killing a journalist with a bone saw. Yeah. And, yeah, war criminal. War criminal. So that's the news I have for today. I'm not going to talk about CPAC because I don't care. Ted Cruz said some stupid shit about Cancun being nice, and yeah, that was stupid. But I don't want to talk about CPAC that much. It's not that interesting to me. But yeah, that's the story of Biden bombing Syria and the minimum wage in less than 24 hours. Really impressive. Really impressive. Remember? Yeah. Not sure about my harm reduction vote anymore. Not really sure.